Today we have by high demand Josh Justice, who's a real estate agent with Bender Realty. We're going to find out how many houses he sold last week.
Sometimes they could be, well, if you order dark roast,
Yeah.
they have to actually like they don't have dark roast past a certain time.
Oh.
I want to say it's like maybe 1 o'clock in the afternoon, something like that.
Is the dark roast, is that the pike or is that the other one? What do they call it, the blonde?
So it's going to be the other one. So I think pike, if I'm not mistaken, I think pike is either their light roast or their medium. And then they have different types of, like French roast is going to be their dark. There's a couple others.
But what is the blonde?
The blonde, from what I remember, because I haven't had it much. They first introduced it a while back, and I remember getting a cup, and it was okay. I just didn't like it. I like more of that dark flavor, and so it is a little bit lighter than what that dark is.
Blonde must be the lighter. I guess that's where they get the name blonde.
Yeah,
I guess
that's all I'm guessing too.
Whenever you read a story in the newspaper or see something on television about somebody getting arrested, you naturally assume they're guilty. Unless the story is about you or someone you love, then you'll think differently. And you'll want a lawyer who will defend you. My name's Scott Canavis. If you or someone you love has been charged with a crime, call me. I'll return your phone calls, I'll work on your case, and I will defend you.
So what do you usually do on Sundays?
So usually I will, well, for about 3 years straight, I was playing drums for a church in Hickson, Dallas Bay Church. And this past spring, I injured my arm, had to have surgery, and so I was out of commission with the drum thing for a while. During that time, my kids they've been asking to go to First Baptist, and we only live 10 minutes away from First Baptist. So we start going there while my arm is, in a sling and whatnot. And then I talked to a couple of the music folks over there, and I got a chance a few weeks ago. I played for their main service, which was pretty cool. And so we try to do the church thing. Afternoons, we'll just kind of piddle around the house, just kind of, I do a lot of woodworking, so I did a ton of projects. And so usually I'm either doing open houses for real estate or I'm just finishing up a project or two. Last Sunday, we decided to just do family time, and we just went for a drive. So,
But when I was a real estate agent for a while when I was younger, and boy, I hated open houses. I don't think I ever sold one on an open house.
yeah, I've had a couple, some luck like earlier on with open houses. Nowadays, they're really hit or miss. People just don't go as much as they used to. Used to, it was a thing like when my wife and I, we got married. Actually, tomorrow will be, 1 month from tomorrow will be 20 years for us.
Golly.
And so, when we first got married almost 20 years ago, that's what we would do on a Sunday. We would just go to open houses, and every single one would be packed out. And you just don't see that these days.
I don't know why that is. I guess they don't have as many like they used to.
Yeah, probably not as many as they used to. And then also just, 20 years ago, the internet and social media didn't exist 20 years ago, or,
22 years ago, probably.
Yeah, and so it's one of those things where people just didn't, I don't know, as of right now, everybody's looking at social media, looking at internet, whatever, but back then people just didn't have that stuff. And so they're like, well, let's just go for a drive and let's follow these signs. And, even if we're not looking for a house, let's just walk in and see what happens,
It's a good way to cultivate customers and relationships, which is more work, but it's better than not having one if you're going to try everything.
Oh yeah, absolutely. And I've had some luck with open houses. I've had people walk in and we'll talk, and whether they're working with an agent or not, we're just talking. And a lot of times you'll find that they're just like, I'm not really in the market, but I just want to see what this is all about. And then you start talking to them and follow up with them, a day or two later, and they're like, well, I actually really am interested. And so.
And 5 years later, they say, hey, let's call that guy.
Oh, yeah.
How long, when did you get your real estate license?
It's been about 5 years now, so I've been doing this for about 5 years.
What'd you do before that?
So I was a history teacher, and so.
Where at?
At a Cody Middle and at Walker Valley. And so as a matter of fact, I had your son Dee in class in 8th grade for sure. I think I had him in high school too. So I had him in American history, 8th grade. Hunter Shamblin, Chase Lawson, those guys.
Our good friend.
I had them in class too. So it was a blast.
You don't look much older than them.
I know. I get that all the time. People, people get kind of wigged out when they see me and when I start talking about the things I've done and my careers and whatnot, and they're like, dude, you look like you're 25.
Yeah.
I always have people guess my age. I did that in class too, but nobody ever guesses, and I turned 43 this past summer, and most everybody they don't get it. So, but
so how long? So you decided to quit school, quit teaching, and just go into full-time realtor?
Yeah. Whenever I do anything, it's always full force.
That was a big jump, wasn't it?
It was, and thankfully with my wife's career, she's a surgical assistant at the hospital, and she loves what she does. She's wonderful at it. She's great at it. That's a very consistent, job, consistent income. And she does very well in that. So we could live on her salary alone. And so I was like, well, we'll just do it. I had toyed around with the idea several years back of law school. I was wanting to kind of pursue my law degree. Then I looked and I was like, it's going to cost about $100,000, 3 years of my life. And then I thought, if I do real estate, that's about 3 weeks and about $1,000.
Yeah.
So the barrier to entry is very minimal. And at the time, my girls had just turned 5. I have twin girls. And so I thought, do I really want to spend the next few years of their lives when it's really fun that, they're doing activities and stuff like that in school, or do I want to actually just, kind of have a little bit more of a flexible schedule? And that's where we went.
Do you find real estate is that flexible, or is it?
Kind of, but not really. In the mornings, it's incredibly flexible. I can drop the kids off at school. I either go into Bender or I go to my home office. And usually the first 2 hours of my day, from 8 to 10, is spent doing all sorts of paperwork, making my phone calls and that type of a thing. And then I will usually, if I'm not crazy busy with appointments, then the rest part of my day is from 10 until about 2. I spend out in the shop working, making furniture and that type of a thing. But what I find though, as soon as I go up to the shop, I get phone calls and got to drop what I'm doing, go show a house. And so it's flexible if I use my time wisely. I can get some stuff done, but I am pretty much at the mercy of other people's schedule. So if you're looking in the evenings and on the weekends to show houses, which it's fine. It's what I signed up for.
Or are you feel like you've been successful in the last 5 years selling?
Yes. So the average real estate agent sells around, 10, maybe 12 houses a year. So I'm just completing year 5. And so I've sold over 100. And so that would, definitely put me around that 20 houses on average.
More than average.
So, yeah, and it's definitely been really, really nice, really good. It's the pay is going to be a little bit different than say my other profession. Of course, my other profession was very consistent. So regardless of what I did,
and you didn't have expenses. I bet. Do you have a lot of? Used to realtors would have a lot of money spent in advertising, but I guess that's less now with social media.
Yeah, it's far less. I would say probably around 90-something% of my business comes from social media. People just call me. A lot of former students. I've actually sold houses to a lot of former students, and they just reach out to me on social media. They'll say, "Hey, it's about time. I want to go and start looking," and I'll get them hooked up with a lender, and we start talking and we sit down just like this, have a buyer's consultation. I go over the whole process with them, and it's really neat because, several years ago I got to teach them about history. Now I'm teaching them about, the housing market and how to buy a house. So it's kind of cool. So.
Did you not like teaching, or you just wanted to change?
So the teaching aspect of the job, loved it. Like, absolutely loved it. I did some crazy cool stuff. Talked to Hunter, talked to several of these folks I had in class before. And, each time I talk to them, they talk about some of the crazy stuff I used to do. I was that teacher that I was jumping up on desks and chairs. I was breaking stuff in the classroom all the time. I'd always bring in my banjo or a drum set in the class. I would do all sorts of crazy stuff. So the teaching aspect of the job was amazing. Loved it. The politics behind it, the glass ceiling that you have, because the only way to make more money teaching is to get higher degrees, coaching, or move up to become a principal. And becoming a principal is something I've never wanted to do. I coached for a long time, but still, that's just pennies. And it's one of those things where it's really sad because, I was in the trenches for 14 years. Loved it. But teachers need to get paid more for what they do, because they do a lot. And I think a lot of times the general public, they just don't see what we do behind the scenes, and put a lot of hours in. And it's one of those things where it's a very noble profession, and I kind of wish we'd get back to that view of it as a noble profession, and that people have more respect for teachers and what they do. So it's all that kind of stuff just kind of came to a head, and my wife and I, we were talking, and I thought, it's about time.
Did you feel like you had to hit the ground running? I mean, just go as hard as you could?
Oh, yeah. Yeah, it was, as soon as I got into real estate, it was one of those things where, it's a do or die, type of a thing. And you gotta just get out there and just do it. You can't wait for things to come to you. You just have to get out there and start talking to people. And
you got to follow every lead possible, I guess, don't you?
Oh, yeah. And, the one of the things that has helped me is, and this is my philosophy in life, as a matter of fact, the prayer that I pray with my girls every morning before school, one of the things we say is, help me, or please help me be nice and kind to everybody. And that's one of my mantras that I live by, is that, we just have to be nice and kind to everybody. And that actually pays dividends, because people see the church a nice person. You want to help them out. It's very important to look at people as people. The most widely quoted Bible verse, John 3:16, for God so loved the world. And, he loves people, and we should love people as well. And so that being said, it's important for us to look at other people as other people, and not as a paycheck, and not as a commission check, and not as, hey, this is a deal I'm working. I mean, it's literally, what can I do to help you? You have an issue, whether that is you have to sell your house, or you have to buy something, or, going through a divorce or a death or something like that, some sort of life change. People need help, and people don't know how to do it. And so that's...
people do not know how to do that, do they? It's shocking how, to me, it kind of comes natural. Like you playing the drums. I couldn't play the drums for nothing. But I would know how to buy a house without being taught.
Yeah. It is kind of crazy that, and there's a lot of things that are natural to other people that are just not for me. I mean, we open up the hood of a car for me, I have no idea what's going on in the engine. I don't understand the first thing.
Don't even care.
And I don't even really care to learn, because there are other people out there that's how they make their living, and I want to help them out with making their living, and it's their passion. But yeah, same thing with real estate. When people some people just don't know. They just don't know how to do it.
You ever wondered if there's something we're really good at, but we just hadn't done it?
Yeah, I've actually wondered that a lot.
I mean, what could it be? I mean, it could be something we're just the best in the world.
Yeah, I've thought about that a lot.
I assume we would levitate towards that. I assume.
Yeah. I'm thinking so that, probably maybe our interest or something that we see on TV, the internet, would go, hey, I wonder if, and then we would just at least try it.
That's the advantage to watching TV.
Yeah.
I've been watching The Fugitive, and he was had to take odd jobs throughout the country for 5 years. And it was really neat. He'd have 2 jobs a night. And you got to see, remember that guy on TV that did the dirty jobs?
Yeah.
What was his name?
Oh, I can't remember.
Micro.
Yeah, Micro.
Yeah. I didn't watch it too much, but I believe I'd watch it now.
Yeah.
Because it was supposed to be high-paying jobs too, that you wouldn't think, like cleaning septic tanks and working on oil rigs and stuff I think he did a mortician for a while.
Wow, that's crazy. Yeah, it's cool when you see different jobs out there, and I've always just been fascinated by just other people's industries and what they do for a living. Because I know what I know, and that's it. Like, I don't know what I don't know, and so whenever you see somebody like I did several months ago, I did something over at Lee. I helped judge some sort of like a history fair for high school kids, middle school and high school kids. And so there's a panel of folks, and a couple of the people that are on my team, one of them, the guys, he helps people with if they get their identity stolen. He helps find the bad guys. He helps bring them in, and he helps the people who got their identity stolen get their stuff back. And I thought, I've never seen that before. I've never met anybody who did that. And it's like, that's a really cool job. And it's a really cool thing that it exists out there.
Yeah.
And so it's really neat.
Probably a sort of how would you get paid for that? I wonder.
I don't know. Like, I'm sure that he works for some sort of a company, possibly it might even be a government job.
Might be like a private investigator sort of thing.
Yeah, which I think that's kind of a cool job too.
I always thought it'd be neat to be a bounty hunter.
Yeah. Yeah, I thought it'd be kind of cool. It'd be very unsuspecting for me because, I'm a little dude. I'm 5'4". Nobody would ever think that I'm a bounty hunter. So,
You could get away with it.
Oh, yeah.
Do you think that real teachers, what do they make, like $58,000 a year or something? I don't even know.
When I left, I had 14 years experience plus, and I have a master's degree, and I left making $55,000 a year.
So that's what, $1,000 a week?
Yeah.
They take out taxes and you end up with we got health insurance. If you had to have health insurance taken out of that, you'd be bringing home $700 a week.
Yeah. So it's,
800 maybe.
So it's definitely, it's a noble profession that, you do it for the calling and not for the money. It's
And you assume you don't, when you're going through college and you're choosing a career, you don't know how much money you need to make. So that's not even really in your mind. You almost just do something that a relative that you like the relative.
Yeah.
Or the uniform or something.
Yeah. And I think one of the biggest things, so when I taught at the high school level, I taught personal finance and economics. And I would open up my personal finance class and I'd tell everybody, like, this literally is the most important class you're ever going to have. And of course, kids are like, no. And they're like, no, it's my science, my math. I'm like, no, literally, this is going to be it. Because I told them, it doesn't matter what you do in life. You can go on to college, get your 4-year degree, go to med school, become a doctor. You can, become, a plumber, electrician. You can go to trade school and do all those sort of things. I said, but here's the thing. You can make a ton of money, but if you have no idea what to do with it, where are you? So you need to understand personal finance. You need to understand how to do things with your money. And I think it's important that I honestly believe first-year college students need to sit down in a personal finance class, and they need to say, okay, here's the profession you've chosen. Here's essentially the average of what they make. Can you afford the lifestyle that you want to live within that? Or can you actually mold and adapt your mind into the okay, here's what you're going to make. Here's the lifestyle you want to live, which is way beyond your means. Let's change that mindset and actually just learn how to live within your means, And so I think that would be a very helpful thing.
I think they ought to have a class for like a tax class, like something about tax, because taxes are very important. You can almost make a living with what you can save legally on taxes.
Oh yeah.
Or you can get a lot more money.
Yeah, and
it's maybe 10% or something.
Yeah, and
in the all legal stuff, just knowing what you can do.
I think that'd be a great idea for somebody to to start something like that where people had to take that. When I was in high school years ago, it was, here's how you fill out your, basically your tax returns, and that was it. So it was never anything of in depth,
Yeah, like what's a deduction? What's an IRA?
Yeah. Yeah, it was crazy. I didn't even know what an IRA was or a Roth IRA until I was out of college, you know. And I listened to a financial planner speak one time, and he was talking about it. And that was about 18 years ago, and I opened one up as soon as he mentioned something about it. I was like, yep, sign me up,
I had an old friend of mine one time said, he said, contribute to your IRA every year, even if you have to borrow the money.
Yeah.
And he had money. He was a smart guy, and I have ever since.
Yeah, it's
some years I had to borrow the money to do it.
It's very smart. Well, I was sitting down. I was talking to a buddy of mine who is he's a past client as well, and he's he brings in a lot of money. He makes really good money, and we were talking, and he was kind of talking about vehicles and whatnot, and he said, I have the money to pay cash for any car I want, but he goes, why should I use my money? Why don't I just use somebody else's, borrow it? He said, that's honestly the way to do it. He said, if you're going to continue to make money, he said, if you want to hoard it and save it, that's one thing. But he said, if you want to actually make money, he said, use somebody else's. And it's like, that's a pretty good piece of advice.
Well, I've heard people argue that both ways, and I'm with the people that say borrow it, because the people that have the most money, the banks and the insurance companies, they all borrow it.
Oh, yeah.
If they borrow it, why can't I borrow it?
Yeah, what's a very interesting thing, so when Thomas Jefferson passed away, which, by the way, he passed away on the 50th anniversary of the Declaration of Independence, which is kind of neat, and John Adams passed away the same day.
Yeah.
And so...
They were big buddies, weren't they?
Yeah. Yeah, they hated each other during the election of 1800. Man, they were just fighting like crazy. But they rekindled their friendship later on. But yeah, when Thomas Jefferson passed away, he had so much debt, but, and he even talked about how he was poor and whatnot, but he still owned Monticello. I mean, he had how many acres of land? I mean, of course, back then, slaves, having X amount of slaves was, that was a sign of wealth. So he had that. He also had one of the most extensive wine collections in the world.
He had a vineyard, didn't he?
Yeah. And so it was one of these crazy things where, like, he's like, I'm poor. I don't have anything. But yet he has everything that, you can imagine. But the thing is he just had a lot of debt, but he still had a lot of wealth too. And a lot of times folks just don't really understand the difference between the two. Now, obviously, we don't want our debt to be more than our wealth, but...
I had a friend of mine that had gone bankrupt, and I let the dust settle for a couple of years, and I met him one day at a restaurant. I just wanted to ask him. I said, hey, Jim, I said, if you don't mind my asking, how did you go broke? I just asked him. He said, I had too much equity. And I said, what do you mean? He said, I had too much equity. I said, I don't understand what you're saying. He said, if you have too much, he said, I had all equity and no cash, and no bank would loan me the money on my equity. And I couldn't sell it, so that's what he went broke. So you had to have some ammunition.
Yeah.
And the way you get it is borrow something, then you at least got the ammunition.
Oh, yeah.
There's a fine-tuned thing to knowing how to do all that.
Yeah, there is. And, it's very fascinating to listen to folks like Dave Ramsey. He's on one end of the spectrum.
Yeah.
Where, all cash and, don't go into debt for anything, that type of a thing. And then you have other folks who they're like, no, like borrow money all the time, use somebody else's money, and I think it's definitely a balance to find out, and I think it's a personal thing too. It's wherever somebody is. If I know folks who they struggle, they live paycheck to paycheck. They don't have a savings account. Like it's amazing to see how many people that are out there that do not have a savings whatsoever, and they literally, like, if they missed one paycheck, they could literally lose their house. It's that type of a thing, and it's scary. And so Dave Ramsey's mindset and his teachings, they are for those type of people to help out.
Didn't he have trouble too?
I think so.
In the beginning, that's how he started that, I think.
Yeah, I think so. And then, of course, he built essentially an empire to what he has today, and he's incredibly intelligent with his money. Now, I don't know if I actually have no idea. Yeah. I don't know if he follows his own advice or not. Yeah. I don't know if he truly actually buys everything on cash, which, I mean, obviously when, you're bringing in 7 figures a year, you probably can buy everything on cash, But yeah, I think it's a fine line. You just got to figure out where that is and, where it is in somebody's life, If somebody who, if they're bringing in $500K a year, their view of finances is going to be a little bit different than somebody who brings in 50. And so it's, we just got to figure out what works best for each one of us.
And your comfort zone. Some people that I know that grew up really poor, they won't borrow money for toilet paper.
Yeah.
They just won't do it. They just can't stomach it.
Yeah, I had some clients one time I was talking to, and they had, good word, they had probably about maybe $350,000, $400,000 cash to spend on a house, and they were looking at some places that are around 500, 600,000 mark, and we got to talking, and they said, well, if we can get them down, $100,000. Of course, I'm telling them nobody's coming down $100,000 off their stuff, but I mentioned to them, I said, well, you guys have a good portion right here. I said, I wouldn't drain your account to buy this. I said, why don't you put down maybe 200 and then just finance the rest? Mm-hmm. And man, the guy looked at me like I had 3 heads. He was like, no. He said, you never go into debt for anything, ever. Mm-hmm. And then come to find out, he did grow up very, very poor. Mm-hmm. Like literally like ate out of dumpsters and stuff like that. And he was like, I will never owe anything to anybody. Because he said, I'm afraid someone's going to come and take whatever it is, if I don't make my payments and stuff like that. So, but I guess it's just different mindset, different.
And some people aren't into big money. They just don't care that much about it.
Yeah. Yeah, it's, my wife and I and her parents are absolutely amazing. They're probably one of the best people I've ever seen when it comes to money. My father-in-law worked at Duracell for over 40 years, stayed in one place. And my mother-in-law, she was an office manager at a couple car dealerships, like at the same time. And, they did very well for themselves, but they didn't invest in real estate. They didn't invest into like some other things that other people have done. They've just done a little bit of stock market and they saved their money. Like, I think it was probably maybe 12, 13 years ago. It was the first time I've ever seen my father-in-law buy a pair of shoes, and he spent more than $20 for them. He was so excited. He's like, hey, look at these, But that's just the way that they grew up, and they didn't spend any money. And, now they've been debt-free. They built a beautiful house, good Lord, probably 25, almost 30 years ago now. Mm-hmm. They paid it off within probably 10, 15 years. They got about 16, 17 acres of land, and they just sit out there and just hang out. They just enjoy life. And it's, they're both retired. They just love it.
Different strokes for different folks, right?
Oh, yeah. So, yeah, some people with that much equity in their house, and I mean, they, it's like I said, it's a nice house, land, so I mean, it's worth a pretty penny. They could, pull some money out and do some real estate investing, but they're like, nope. Like, we worked really hard. We want to just chill for the rest of our lives. We don't want to keep working. So
I feel like money costs you about 5%, no matter where it's at.
Yeah, that's.
And so if you're not investing it, you're actually spending 5% a year. If you're not investing it, making at least 5%.
Yeah.
So it's like it's going to disappear.
Yeah.
Can you believe how much prices are? Well, how much was the prices of houses? Well, I guess you're really not as familiar with it as I am, but some of these houses that were $60,000 are $250,000 now.
Yeah.
The same house.
It's insane. The very first house my wife and I purchased back in 2006.
That was at the very top.
Yeah, and it was insane because, so it was in September of 2006 we purchased that place. We bought it at about 119. I think it was 119,000.
Let me guess. Of what it's worth today? let's see, if it was 119, and how many years ago?
So I was in 2006. So you're looking at 18, yeah, 18 years ago now.
425.
It's I think that one. I think last time I looked and I ran numbers, it was close to 400. It was about 375, 385, something like that.
I'd say you're wrong.
And it's
Based on what things
Yeah.
are now.
And
It's bizarre.
it is insane. It baffles my mind when I see some of the prices of these things.
But everything's going up. I went to that hibachi grill after church, and I just got rice and, what I thought was $6. Me and my wife went, and it was 23.
Yeah.
I mean, I don't mind spending it, but at some point you say, man, I think I'll just eat at home.
Yeah.
It gets ridiculous.
It is. I did the online grocery shopping this morning. I usually do that on Sundays. I'll just order the stuff and then I'll go pick it up Sunday afternoon, evening.
How do you know what to get?
So usually what I do is I just go like to the Aldi website or to whoever I'm going to buy it through, and I just kind of just kind of scroll through, see what The beautiful part about doing that at the house is I can actually open up the refrigerator and say, hey, how many eggs do I have? That type of a thing.
So you order the general stuff?
Yeah, so I order the general stuff. And I usually look at whatever they have going on as far as sales go. And I kind of start there and just kind of pick and choose what we need.
So you'll get eggs, milk, bread?
Yeah, and we'll get some meat and stuff like that. And then I usually don't do the delivery because it's a pretty expensive charge. It's like $30 or $40 extra.
Yeah, and you don't know what to tip them, so that gets confusing.
Yeah, so I'm like, I'll go pick it up.
So if you ordered it this morning.
Yeah, so I ordered it this morning, and so I'll go pick it up here probably about a little bit. And
how do they know what time you're going to be there?
So they give me a window, and so I tell them when I could be available, and so they'll just have somebody shop and do all the stuff for me and have it ready.
Wonder what time they do that. If you used to order milk, would they leave the milk out, or how would they do that?
I think, if I'm not mistaken, I think they actually anything that's refrigerated, I think they just put it into the cooler, and so they have the shopping cart there ready for you, but they shove the shopping cart into the cooler.
Just the whole thing.
Yeah,
that's a good idea.
Yeah.
So that's a lot of coordinating.
It is, and which is it's really nice and convenient. We definitely love doing that way, but going through it this morning, you can definitely see the prices, and it's like, oh my gosh,
I really want that.
Yeah,
because otherwise you just
and of course
some Oreos.
Oh yeah, and when you take the kids with you, they're constantly, Daddy, can I have this? Can I have this? And they slide some stuff in the cart when you're not looking. So it's prices have just gotten crazy. And
even like a bottle of ketchup's unbelievable, isn't it?
Oh yeah, everything is just. It's insane.
I wonder what a bottle of Heinz 57 is at the store.
I don't know. Well, I hardly ever buy like brand name stuff. I grew up on generic food, and so that's just kind of where I've always gone. And so I don't even pay attention to what the actual brand names are as far as their prices go.
What would you not eat generic?
Oh, that's a good question. I think there's certain cereals that I just won't eat generic.
They're not the same.
Yeah, just not the same. So, there's certain cereals that I just have to get the brand name
Some
for.
stuff I don't mind at all.
Yeah. But, it's definitely nuts with these prices, though. Hopefully something will
I bet
change.
a bottle of Heinz 57 is $6.
Yeah.
Used to, it wasn't even nothing to even think about. It's, I don't even know, maybe $1 or something.
I was telling my kids, and they were shocked. I told them when I was a kid, we'd go get hamburgers, like just a sack of hamburgers from McDonald's, because the hamburgers were 49 cents a piece, and they were like, they were that cheap. I'm like, yeah. I'm like, you can literally just, you have somebody come over and help you do some work, whatever. You bring a sack of hamburgers, and everybody eats one, and like it doesn't cost you but just a couple, $3.
You didn't even think about it.
Yeah.
Or pizza.
Yeah. It's insane.
I don't know what's going to happen with it, and I'm not so sure this stuff they're putting in it, that high fructose corn syrup, I can taste it. I just can't stand that stuff.
Yeah, and it's definitely crazy. I've been trying to, as a matter of fact, just this morning when I was ordering those groceries, one of my daughters came up and she was like, "Hey, can we have?" She gave me a list of all these like sugary things. I'm like, "Nope." And so, what can we have for snacks? And I said, "Well, I got you some celery, got you some strawberries."
That ain't gonna work.
And they're like, "What?" I'm like, "It's you got to eat more of that natural stuff, So.
So what kind of woodworking do you do?
Anything and everything. I actually, I make anything that's like decorative pieces, picture frames and cutting boards, and I got this little paw print leash holder that I made. I made a bunch of them.
Pretty slick, huh?
Oh yeah.
Yeah. How'd you get the name in it?
I have a laser engraver. So.
How big a thing? What laser?
Let's see here. I think the space I have is probably 19 inches by 19 inches, something like that. Is the workspace 20 by 20.
So you can. So
yeah.
What kind of wood is that? Different wood on the paws?
Yeah. So I have this is oak and then some black walnut. So I have I got a whole shop at the house, and so I always get just rough cut lumber. It's the cheapest, and I have.
Where do you get it from?
Facebook Marketplace usually, and I always wait for the good deals. I typically find that you're going to make most of your money on the buy side of things, and so whenever I see a good deal, I don't ever spend more than $4 a board foot for lumber, and walnut can get stupid expensive. $10, $12, $13 a board foot, and so I always wait till I can find some stuff that's pretty cheap. And I got a planer, a joiner at the house. I got I got a CNC machine too, so a router that does a bunch of my stuff for me, all sorts of stuff. And so I planed this thing down, got to the thickness I needed, and then I cut out the walnut with the laser. So I actually cut these things out with the laser, and then engraved that. And then I cut the oak piece out with my CNC. But so I do those sort of things, and then also build furniture. So
you'll program. You don't do this with a jigsaw, or you'll. That's how you get it that close together, huh? Otherwise, it'd be just a little bit off here and there, wouldn't it?
Yeah, and so I do both. So I have a nice bandsaw and a couple of jigsaws at the house that I still like to do the actual manual, those sort of things. But I made a bunch of these at one time, and so I just put it on the CNC and it cut it out for me. So I can get 12 of these things cut out in probably 45 minutes. And so that way here, I don't have to actually do it myself. I can go to another part of the shop and work on something else.
If you could make a living doing that, would you?
Oh yeah. If as a matter of fact, kind of the dream. If I were just last night, my wife and I, we were walking downtown. We went to Seepins on Central. I don't know if you guys heard of that or not, but
where's that at?
It's right across from Luke's Episcopal Church, and it's a great place. They have live music there every Friday and Saturday night, and so they had some really good jazz last night. And so we hung out there, and afterwards we walked, and it's literally just on the opposite side of Stampers. And so we walked down, and we were walking past Stampers, and I looked at my wife, and of course, Stampers closed, and I said, if money wasn't an option, if I could just have a dream come true, I said I would have my own line of furniture that I've made and designed, and we would just fill this place up, full of that furniture, and we'd sell it. Like, that's what I would love to do, is just make furniture for a living. I think
listen to the radio and build stuff.
Yeah, listen to podcasts like this, and just build stuff. So it's what I like to do. But
well, how would a person go about doing that? How would they? You'd have to have if you sold furniture, I wonder, how do you know if it'll hold up somebody's weight, or do you have to worry about that? Or is
kind of like if you're really truly getting into the design stuff of it, and some people, they're a little more creative than others. Sometimes people can call it they're a little weirder than others. They just want to try to, hey, maybe I can, move a leg on a chair to see if it'll look different. I'm more, I like the function of something. So I want to make something functional, something that's used, can be used and can be used for many years, you know. And so I don't really want to play around too much with design to where like it's going to, you know, jeopardize the structural integrity of it. And so, you know, with the table, it's pretty pretty straightforward, self-explanatory. You know, you got 4 legs, 4 or 5, like, you know, 6 legs, whatever you got. You got an apron, and then you got your top. And so, you know, got some brace pieces in the bottom if you need them. And so that kind of stuff is pretty simple to kind of come up with. And
if somebody falls, they're not falling far.
Yeah,
You know,
yeah, exactly.
Remember when everybody used to do that? They'd take wood and make like hillbilly furniture out of it.
Oh, yeah.
Swings and stuff.
Yeah.
That didn't last long, did it?
No, it didn't.
And then the Big Bend furniture, the big logs, that didn't last long either, did it?
No, it's, you know, obviously, you know, up there in Pigeon Forge, Gatlinburg, cabins and stuff like that, people are going to, you know, have that. But that's not a huge, you know, thing. Right now, obviously, farmhouse stuff is kind of still there. It's going out a little bit, but more of the mid-century modern is what people are asking for. And
What would mid-century modern be?
oh man, that's a good question. It's one of those questions that everybody kind of debates over what it is. You know, more of your, I guess you like, you know, straight line stuff, but also things that have like angles. Like your legs are usually going to be angled in a
Like
little
the
bit
Brady
more.
Bunch.
Yeah, just like that. So that type of stuff.
Early 1970s furniture, maybe.
Yeah,
Maybe.
Yeah, usually they somewhere around the mid 50s to the, you know, early 70s is kind of like where people throw in the mid-century modern stuff.
So do you know anybody's furniture that you say, man, that was built by so-and-so? I mean, is there any such a thing like that?
Yeah, there is. The guy's last name starts with an M. Maloof. That's it. So this dude, he actually passed away probably 4 or 5 years ago, 6 years ago, something like that. But Sam, I think is his first name, Sam Maloof. I'll have to look it up for sure. But he was known for his rocking chairs. And his rocking chairs, when he was alive and he would make them, I mean, cheapest you could find was like 5,000, something like that, you know.
Golly.
I mean, I've seen them up 14, 15, 20 grand, you know. And his style, though, was the feet of it, the rocking part of it. So the back part came in and they went very far out. So, and they were kind of like, they would kind of angle up and get really skinny at the end. And so it was just a style that he had, and it's been duplicated. People love it. Like, you know, people who are really massively into like woodworking and furniture building, everybody knows, you know, his chairs.
Was it rock different?
They said, I've never actually sat in one, but they said it's one of the most like best ergonomically, you know, chairs you can sit in. They said it's incredibly comfortable, rocks smooth.
I love a rocking chair.
Oh, yeah.
And you don't see them anymore.
You don't. When we first bought our very first house, we went through Southern Heritage Bank as our lender, and at the closing, they gave us a chair.
Is that right?
They gave us a rocking chair. And of course, you don't see that these days. Now,
Nope.
I do, like all my real estate deals, like all my clients, I always make them some sort of a custom gift. You know, whether it's, you know, if they're into dogs, you know, I'll make them something like that.
What is that, a leash hanger?
Yeah, it's a leash hanger. So I did a keyhole in it, just put it up there, and we did the Bark in the Park festival, I guess you want to call it, last weekend, and I had a bunch of these things sitting out, and it was mainly for my girls. My girls, they made dog treats and they made some pens, stuff like that. But I had a few of these sitting out, and I made up I think 15, and I've sold 20. So
Is that right?
I got to make up some more.
How much they sell them for?
So unengraved, I've been doing 15, and then engraved like that, do 20. So, which everybody's told me the price is too cheap, but I'm like, well, I mean, I'm not. This isn't my main line of work. This is just a hobby. So, but yeah, it's definitely fun. I enjoy doing it.
You know, you're sort of doing. You've mentioned building stuff that goes in houses, just like you're selling houses. I wonder if there's a correlation there.
There might be. I've actually thought about doing. People don't do this as much anymore, but I thought about building furniture to stage houses. You know, when you have vacant home, or somebody who flips houses or whatever. And then like, if another agent wants to use that piece of furniture, whatever I make, they rent it from me for X amount of days, months, weeks, whatever. And then I can also put a tag on it, so the potential buyers that walk in, if they like where it is, they like it, then they have the opportunity, they can purchase it. And so I thought about doing something like that. The only downside is, my biggest thing is even with these things, I don't like to have a lot of inventory. I like to do more custom work because I don't want to sit on inventory and have to try to move it and then reduce prices and then, try to figure out how I'm going to store things. And so
now a lot of these cabinet people, they'd hire woodworking people just to install cabinets, but that's not your thing, is it?
No, I tell everybody, because people have contacted me before. They're like, "Can you make custom cabinets or
Fix a door?
yeah, fix door, or I do remodeling and stuff like that?" And I'm like, I just don't work in other people's houses. And the main reason is going to be I'm not licensed, bonded, insured. I don't have any of that, and so I don't want to run that risk of drilling through a hole or a wall and hitting a pipe or something like that. But also like I said, it's more of a hobby for me, and so I like to kind of put in the podcast and listen as I'm working at the shop, and I just make stuff. And I do have a decent sizable project coming up I'm going to start on tomorrow, actually. Some bookcases, some built-in bookcases, and a Murphy bed I'm making for a guy. And so I'll be installing that kind of. Really, I'm just putting the bookcases where they need to go.
Yeah.
But that's about it. But I don't. I leave the custom cabinetry to other folks. So.
Do you specialize in any one area of real estate?
The one area that I've seen that I've actually done a lot in is going to be like first-time home buyers. And I think a lot of that, kind of correlates with my teaching career, because I love educating people. And so when I'm hanging out with a first-time home buyer and they've never bought a house before, that's, I get excited about that, because one, I get to teach them how to do it, how to educate them. And then, it's also really fun and exciting to see them go through that process, and they get really excited about it. So that's kind of where I've done the most work. I've done some commercial stuff, some land, but like I said, I'm more into the residential, and then more primarily even just with first-time home buyers. So
you hadn't been in it long enough to really specialize, except first-time home buyers.
Yeah, it's now I've done I've helped some people flip houses. I've helped investors buy their next flip or their next rentals. I've done that kind of stuff. I helped a buddy of mine buy a farm, not too long ago. It was a 66-acre farm. And so those sort of things. But, I had a guy contact me one day, and he was like, "Hey, can you help, do some land development and that type of a thing?" And I was like, "Nah, you'll have to find, that's just not my thing. I don't really have too much experience in that. And, I could find you the land, but, the actual getting it developed, that's beyond my pay grade." So...
Well, I know she had something for sale on Maury Road. What was that?
Yeah, so...
Did you sell that?
So I had a open house yesterday on that one. So 424 Maury Road.
Was that Jim McSpadden's old house, reckon?
I don't know. That name sounds real familiar as far as writing up a contract. I almost remember writing up something that had that name to it. Because actually, the current owners, I helped them buy the house about 4 or 5 years ago.
From him, maybe.
I think it was.
Yeah.
So, but yeah, I have that one. I got several things going on right now. So I got a really good house in Eagle Creek right now. It's
it's a hot area right now, isn't it?
Oh yeah, we just listed that one, and it's around 2,500 square feet, brand new house. It's gorgeous.
Who built it?
Case and Condon.
The Cons?
Yeah. So.
Does he build all of those in there?
He's built quite a few of them in there.
He developed it, or?
Yeah, and he's really good. So I mean, I've always enjoyed his stuff. But
what would that be? That'd be 500.
Yeah. So a lot of them. There's one that just sold in there. Actually, it was on Halloween. It just closed for $550. So this one we have listed at 575. Yep, 575.
A friend of mine just bought one there about 2 months ago.
Oh yeah, yeah. It's definitely a hot area.
They got a swimming pool.
Yeah.
Clubhouse.
Yeah, it's a great neighborhood. You know,
Is
gated
that all the
community.
amenities they have? Is a clubhouse and a
Clubhouse, swimming pool, of course, gated community. You know, they, you know, got the roads are, you know, done very well there, lights and all that kind of stuff, so you can walk. But yeah, it's a good place.
How many agents are at Bender now? Is there a bunch of them?
Yeah, I'd have to say it's somewhere in the 40s. So we
Are they all selling quite a bit?
quite a bit of them are. They, you know, one of the main reasons why I chose to go to that office. So they've had agents there that have been, you know, there for 25, 30 years, and that
Some longer.
yeah, and that is huge in this industry because agents leave all the time their brokerages and go different places. And so, you know, that speaks volumes to them. You know, Jim Workman, of course, you know, he's retired now, and Brian has taken over. And, you know, they're wonderful people, just a good, solid family, good, solid people, great to work for, great to work with. And, yeah, it's just a good, you know, and it's local. You know, that's the thing I like. You know, it's a local business.
Do you know my great-grandfather built that building
Oh, really?
years ago for T.L. Lowry?
Oh, wow.
He was, do you know, you remember,
Yeah, TLR, yeah.
T.L. used to live there.
Oh, wow.
My great-grandfather built that for T.L. Lowry.
That's awesome. Yeah, he had TL bought that the old, well, used to be like a Office Max place over there by the.
I redid that for him.
Okay.
Yeah, OAS or something, OAM or something they call it now.
Yeah, that's cool. Yeah, I like the.
He was high pressure to work for.
Oh yeah.
Oh yeah. Yep.
Yeah, it's definitely interesting. I never heard him speak like live or anything like that, like in person. But you know, I've read some of his stuff, and you know, I grew up Church of God, you know, Pentecostal stuff, and so you know, a lot of the things that he taught on was the stuff that I grew up with.
He was right in there with Pentecostals.
Oh yeah, so, but it was good stuff.
Tell me where that place is downtown. You went Sippins. Where's it at?
Yeah, Seapin's on Central. It is. I'd have to look up the address, but if
say you're at Joe Rogers.
Yeah, if you're at Joe Rogers, so you would then kind of go towards like you know where the courthouse is, and then just let's see, you take a left, I believe it is, and so where Stampers is, like where you know like the actual Stampers place. Literally, if you were able just to draw a straight line, go through the back wall of Stampers, you're going to go straight there into Seapins. And so it's right behind there.
So it's close to Gardner's.
Yeah, yeah.
But I've never seen live music in there.
So they have it on, he just started doing it not too long ago. I'd say probably just a few months ago, 3 months ago. So on Friday and Saturday nights, and they do a cover charge there. It can be anywhere from $10, $15, $20, $25. And like last night, they had really good jazz. And so it was just...
Now, they're not on the corner, are they?
No, it's just, I think it's like one or two, I think it's 2 or 3 doors down from the corner.
So, boy, there's not much room in there, is it?
It isn't. It would be so nice if somehow they could be able to... There's a wall, if they can knock down that wall and just kind of expand it a little bit. But it's nice.
So what kind of jazz?
So I don't know if do you know Sean Perkinson? He's a local guitar player. Just phenomenal.
Dexter Thomas.
Yeah, and phenomenal guitar player.
Yeah.
And another gentleman, his name is Nathan Warner, I believe, his last name, and great trumpet player. And
so what kind of jazz? Like Chet Baker or Van Morrison?
So you're looking at like early 1900s going into the 1940s and 50s jazz. So some very like obscure stuff. Herbie Hancock is going to be one of the big ones that they would do. You know, just a bunch of other stuff like I said around the turn of the century. Like
back then they really didn't copyright their songs like they did now, right?
Yeah.
So they had a lot of what was that? You Ain't Nothing But a Hound Dog. Wasn't that the original written in that era?
Yeah, it's so crazy. You know, especially like with a lot of Elvis stuff. You know, Elvis. You know, as great of a voice and entertainer and dancer, and he brought in things, to the limelight of rock and roll that wasn't there before. He didn't write many of his songs, or
None
of them.
think.
And he was just a guy who just sang other people's stuff, and he just had his spin to it, But yeah, I mean, you're right. There's a lot of uncopy, written stuff back then, and
that was Pajama Game. Wasn't that one of the hits back then?
I think so. Yeah.
But Chet Baker wasn't in that era.
I have no idea, to be honest with you.
You know Chet Baker, though, right?
I know that name.
Played the trumpet.
Yeah.
He was the best trumpet. Wasn't he, Gwen? The best trumpet?
I think he's talking more Dizzy Gillespie, Charlie Parker.
Yeah.
Along that line.
Yeah.
You're
He is, yeah.
Yeah, you're straight up 52nd Street, New York City jazz.
Back before, during Prohibition.
Even earlier.
Earlier.
Yeah.
Roaring 20s.
Yeah.
Yeah. So it's.
They had the skirts. They had the not pleats, but that other stuff, like a grass skirt. But what was it? The skirts would move faster than the hips.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, I know what you're talking about.
Are you more jazz than you are current music?
No, so like I love and I appreciate jazz. I'm not one of those jazz connoisseurs that can, I can tell you what's the, second, song on the, B side of an album that came out in 1947, but, I've definitely grown up appreciating it, I've always, I cut my teeth playing music with, 90s country music, back when I was a kid, contemporary Christian music, that was huge and, where I grew up. But then also like just, 90s grunge and, just that type of stuff. Moving into like Dave Matthews Band and jam band stuff, with Allman Brothers. I grew up listening to Allman Brothers and, that type of stuff. So
you were listening to older music for your time, maybe.
Oh yeah. I grew up on a lot of, Southern rock, classic rock. So, I cut my teeth playing music with Led Zeppelin, Pink Floyd. Those were my jams, with, my friends were listening to, back then they were listening to, NSYNC and Backstreet Boys and all that. And I'm cranking up to, Led Zeppelin and Rolling Stones and
Dire Straits.
And yeah.
Triumph.
Oh,
or was
yeah.
that early, too early?
No, a little, yeah. Stuff like, Van Morrison, loved his stuff.
I love Van.
The Doors, loved Jim Morrison too. Pretty much anything that came out in the 60s, 70s was the thing that I was hooked on. So.
But you never did make any money at that either?
So I've made money as far as like just pickup gigs. I've never made significant money to, have a living on. Yeah. But, I've played for, churches and I've gotten paid for that. I've done, I did a pickup gig for, actually the Association of Realtors a couple weeks ago, I did a gig with that and, just stuff like that. People would just say, hey, I need a drummer to fill in, we're going to play at Pokey's or whatever place,
and
we'll do this.
You can fill in?
Yeah. And so, there was a group of guys that would call me from Sail Creek and I'd drive all the way up to Sail Creek and, they did a little Sail Creek Opry and played like Merle Haggard and, Hank Williams and all that kind of stuff. And so.
Sail Creek Opry.
Yep. So that was several years ago. And, but yeah, it was fun. I've done a lot of pickup gigs like that. People just be like, hey, can you do this? And
I can't play anything. I just can't. It's not in me. I can't do it.
Yeah,
I don't have the brain for it.
Yeah, it's one of those things. It's kind of like with sports. You got to have the it factor. Like you have to have some sort of natural athleticism to be able to do certain things.
Would you say you played the drums? Mm-hmm. So there's not really any music for drums, right? I mean, most of your real good drum players don't follow music.
Yeah, most of them don't. Now, like your jazz drummers and there's some some drummers like that. Like your really, really talented drummers, like your studio session ones up in Nashville, they do follow sheet music. Most of the time, they'll have stuff written out. But if you just jam out with a band, you look like somebody like Dave Grohl, who, he's the lead singer for the Foo Fighters, but he played for Nirvana. He was the drummer for Nirvana back in the early 90s. You know, he doesn't know how to read music. He just plays, you know.
Well, how does he know what to play the same time the next song?
So it's a lot of memorization, and so there's with drumming, there's a lot of patterns. And so, like, if I'm going to play, like, I don't know, "Walk This Way" by Aerosmith. So I can, if I sat down in the kit right now and I start to play that first intro, you're gonna go, "Hey, that's "Walk This Way." You're gonna realize, you know. But I've memorized that pattern, and so there's just a lot of memorization that goes on with drums. So it's a lot more memorization than it is pretty much anything else, and just keep that muscle memory.
If you didn't have to read music, I might could play the drums.
Yeah. If you got rhythm, if you stay on a beat, you can play. So it just learn that coordination. That's all it is.
But learn to play the drums, you couldn't learn at home because nobody'd buy your drums unless you just really wanted to play it. So you'd never know if you could play the drums.
Yeah. So that Dave Grohl, the way he got to start, he always tells us in interviews that, he didn't have anything growing up, and he just played on pillows. So he'd sit in his room, he'd get pillows out, and he'd just wail on the pillows. And, that's how he learned how to play. So, which is kind of cool. It's kind of cool way to do it.
Do you ever listen to any, what's that guy, Carly Simon?
Oh, yeah.
That wasn't too early for you?
No, I still listen to that stuff.
James Taylor?
I love James Taylor.
I think wasn't he married to her?
Yeah. They were married for a little bit of time. I don't know if the story is true, but that song she did, "You're So Vain," I think that song was about him, that she wrote it about him, but I'm not quite sure. I saw James Taylor. I took my dad to go see him in concert in Chattanooga several years back, and Steve Gadd was his drummer at that. And Steve Gadd's one of my favorite drummers of all time, and so it was really cool to, my dad taught me how to play drums years ago when I was like 8 or 9 years old, and so it's cool to take my dad to go see James Taylor, which we both love, and then one of my favorite drummers was there, so it was kind of cool. So.
I saw Jackson Brown there.
Oh yeah?
Yeah, that was good. He was really good.
That's awesome. Yeah, I love all that.
Who do you think was more popular, Jackson Brown or James Taylor?
Ooh, I don't know.
I would think, no question, Jackson Brown.
I would say, especially during that era, yeah. I think James Taylor has, he still has like that, you still hear him playing like in elevators and just doctor's offices. And so you hear a lot of his stuff, but yeah, I think I do agree with that.
I think Jackson Brown was bigger during the time. That could have been because of promoters, but Jackson Brown was a little upper beat than.
Yeah,
I think that was it.
Yeah, I think the different styles.
So what else is going on?
Oh, not a whole lot. Just staying busy. My, just kind of staying busy with Christmas gifts coming up. Got to make some stuff and doing that, and then. I got a lot of stuff going on in real estate. I got several listings that I got to try to get going, and I got a couple under contract with some former students of mine that we're about ready to close here in the next couple of weeks. So
maybe before Christmas?
Yeah, I got one closing on the 18th of this month. One supposed to close actually this upcoming Friday, but that's going to get pushed back. Just staying
Well, getting
busy.
them closed is a trick nowadays, isn't it?
It is. One of the ones I'm working on right now that's supposed to close on Friday. It's tricky because they just found out that they have to go into probate, and so
that's not in Polk County, is it?
No, it's here in Bradley County, but it's one of those crazy situations where they thought everything was great with the will, and then
There was one nephew somewhere.
There's one thing that they said, nope, it's got to go to probate. So hopefully we're going to get that thing going and get that thing closed soon. I hope so.
Boy, and you don't want to close it without getting that taken care of.
Yeah, I can get a headache. And yeah, I tell everybody, at least get title insurance, whatever you do, just get that, just in case, because you never know what could pop up. And it's always good just to have that security.
Well, that's why they have it.
Yeah.
just in case. I think if you get mortgage insurance too, it falls off after. I think it can fall off. You can get rid of your mortgage insurance after you've paid so far down.
Yeah.
The lender's mortgage insurance or something.
Yeah, it's usually around around the 80%,
Yeah,
70-80%, and it falls off.
You have a lot of documents to have the people sign now that you're their agent and he's your agent, and here's you know him but he don't know you, and you're working for him but you like him. And
yeah, there's definitely a lot of documents that goes into just one transaction. Usually, like if I printed out the files, it's a stack, and it's crazy, and that's the thing that when people either try to buy or sell on their own, a lot of times, especially if they're not familiar with it, if they've never done it before, or if they've done it once, 15 years ago, and things have changed in the last 15 years, and a lot of times people don't realize and understand how many things go into it and how many moving parts are just in one transaction, and it can get
just
crazy.
like the one you're on now, they could have closed it without going to probate, and 15 years later they determined it was that nephew's that was in jail when they transferred the deed, and he never signed it.
Yeah, it gets crazy.
I bought a lot one time, and it had a deal like that. It was just a $12,000 lot, and I went to get a bank loan, and they determined that it had not gone to probate, and the guy that supposedly had maybe title to it was in prison. So I had to send a guy to prison with $2,000 to get him to sign a quitclaim deed. Then I got title insurance.
Phew.
But if you buy a lot with title insurance, that's all they'll cover is the cost of the lot. You put a house on it for $200,000. You got title insurance. All they're going to pay is the amount for the lot.
Wow, that's crazy.
That's why you got to get. That's one reason that if you want an argument to get a loan, that's the one, because the bank's not going to loan on it unless there's a clear title, and they're going to make sure you have title insurance and fire insurance. If you wanted a reason, that's it.
Yeah, it's definitely good. Phew. You get some crazy situations in that.
I've been in more of them than I can talk about.
Oh, yeah.
You get into pickles sometimes.
Yeah, I've gotten into a few of them. It's and since I've been doing it for so long, I've done so many transactions that like I can kind of see certain things coming down the pike, and so I can at least inform my clients of like, hey, listen, this might come up. We might see this, and if we don't, that's great. We're pleasantly surprised and everything's wonderful. But at least I can just say, hey, there's a potential, and so let's kind of look at kind of bracing ourselves for this.
What about surveys? Do they all require you? It seems like over the past 6 or 8 years, they've sort of stopped requiring surveys.
They have, and I kind of really wish that they would get it back to a requirement to actually have one done.
They can't get the surveyors out there.
But that's the thing, and which honestly, that if anybody is out there listening and wants to get into some sort of a career, surveyors, soil scientists,
a soil scientist,
like,
you can't get them to.
It's crazy because I've had deals being held up just because they couldn't get somebody out there in time to go check it. And and I'll even put in the contract that we'll have 60, 90 days to due diligence, 120 days, and we still can't get somebody.
You can't get them.
And we've extended and still can't get somebody out. And that was, of course, a couple 3 years ago when the craziness was just going on with the real estate market. But
you think a surveyor's slow till you get a soil scientist.
yeah,
there's like 3.
yeah, it's crazy.
If you was in if I owned a real estate company, I'd have a soil scientist on salary and a surveyor.
Yeah.
It'd make them money.
Oh yeah.
They'd say, "Oh, well, use them. Why? Because they got a soil scientist and a surveyor." That's a good idea, isn't it?
Yeah, because good Lord, it takes forever to get somebody out there. So Yeah, I do really wish that they'd have surveyors, and
And then sometimes they'll say, well, we surveyed it, but they don't ever give it to you.
yeah,
So what's the good in having it?
that's crazy. I just closed on one last week out in Polk County, out in Benton, and her husband had passed away several years ago, and she knew she was going to sell. She talked to the neighbor. The neighbor said, hey, you own, there's a lot essentially in between our house. You own like 3/4 of it. Can we go ahead and split that? So basically I own half, you own half. And she was like, sure. So this is right as I started talking to her about listing the house. So she went ahead and she got a survey done, and everything got recorded. Everything was wonderful. And then, I don't know, about a week or two ago, title company calls me and they're like, hey, we don't have any record of this. And it was, thankfully I had a copy of the actual survey that was recorded with Polk County, but we closed down in Chattanooga, and so they just didn't have anything just yet. So I was like, well, I got a copy for you guys. I'll send it to you. But yeah, everything was wonderful with that. But she got her surveyor out there quick. Like, it was within probably about 3 weeks. She had everything surveyed. Everything was ready to go. So I'm not quite sure. She just had maybe some pull. Maybe she knew somebody.
In Polk County.
But yeah. But it was, like I said, it was about 3 weeks. Everything was recorded and everything. I was like, wow, that was really fast.
That was quick, yeah.
So
it was just one line.
It was just one line. That's all they needed. So yeah. I'm sure they.
I like Polk County, don't you?
Oh yeah.
It's a lot easier to deal with them up there than here.
It is, yeah, and it's it's a lot of just good, old fashioned folks that. We had to, I represented the seller, and so there's a couple different repairs she had to get done, and so the guy who did the repairs, I think he was like more of a retired guy, and he's just been doing this stuff for years, and well respected. Everybody knew the dude, and so the buyer's agent requested us have an invoice typed up by the repair guy for some of these repairs. So he literally wrote on notebook paper, and he said something like, repaired leak, took spigot off thing, and he said something about, patched up something. And and it looked like a little kid's handwriting.
Yeah.
And he had signed it and dated it, and she said, we can't accept this. I'm like, why not? I was like, this dude has done the work.
Yeah.
She's like, but it's not from a company. I was like,
it's his name.
It's his name. I'm like, and he's been doing this longer than you and I have been alive. Mm-hmm. So, he's definitely good for it. So,
those home inspectors, they'll list stuff that makes no sense. Doesn't even matter.
Yeah, and they really don't.
And they'll miss something that's a major thing.
And I sold. It was a former student of mine. I sold him a house in Georgia. I have my Georgia license as well, and so I sold him a house down there almost a year ago now. And the home inspector had missed, as soon as you open up the crawl space, and you just, if you look in there, a big old hole like this in the ductwork. And of course that is going to make his HVAC unit not working properly. And so the home inspector had missed that, but he talked about some stupid stuff that was in the kitchen that didn't mean
matter,
anything.
Yeah.
And so it's stuff like that that can get kind of aggravating. But, I always tell if I represent the buyer, I tell all of them, listen, you need to get a home inspection just so you can at least have documentation of everything that you see in the house, And I tell them, a home inspector is just, they're just going to be, not necessarily like a Captain Obvious type of a thing, but they're just writing down what they see. Mm-hmm. They're just being an observer. Yeah. And I said, some of them can be licensed in other areas, but some of them aren't. And, I had one home inspector that he pitched a fit on a townhome that I had listed, and he said the vent of the microwave is not vented out through the ceiling.
Oh, I've had that before. And you can't get, there's no way to go through the ceiling.
And so I explained to the other agent, I said, literally, it would cost my guy thousands and thousands of dollars to do that.
And that microwave was ventless.
Yeah, and I said, you don't have to have that. Yeah. That is not a thing. Yeah. But the home inspector said, yes, you do. And the home inspector on the other one that I just closed on a couple of days ago, or one day last week, he was talking about getting some GCFI outlets in this area, and he said, you need one on this wall and this wall and this wall. And I'm like, no, you don't. And And they were like, well, yes, you do. You have to. And I said, and I've always been that guy that I look up the information. So, I'm not a licensed electrician. I don't know that stuff off the top of my head. But I looked it up. I said, national standard, and of course you have your state, code, national code, state code. I said, you don't have to. I said, it literally even says you don't have to. And he's like, oh, okay. So.
If you did everything that the state wanted you to check on a home inspection, they'd have to charge you $4,000.
Oh, yeah.
So they're not doing it.
Yeah.
Because there's not enough time, because they're just there for 3 hours.
Yeah.
They're not checking everything.
I've even seen one. I saw one home inspector. He was there at the house for about 45 minutes. It was like a 1,500 square foot house. I'm like, you did not check things.
And they'll say, "This looks odd. Have somebody check it." And aren't they? They're the ones that's checking, because they have an expert check this. They're supposed to be the experts.
Yeah.
Oh, it's crazy. But then don't get a survey.
Yeah, I think
I liked it better when they had their uncle that was familiar go check it and get a real surveyor to survey the lot line.
Yeah, it's crazy, per our contract, that it has to be a licensed home inspector, and like it can't be like a relative that, just has done construction his whole life, and now the owner, the potential buyer could actually do they can do the inspection themselves, but yeah, they can't.
Can they opt out of a home inspection?
Oh yeah, absolutely. Yeah, there's a box we checked. There's actually two of them. One, it actually says you could do a home inspection for just basically for information purposes only, and we waive the right to ask for any repairs.
But then when you do that, you're also waiving your rights. You're waiving a lot of other rights.
Yeah, and so it's, I tell folks, if you do that, do it with caution. And if you check the other box where it basically says that you waive the home inspection completely, and I said and I usually have them write me something in a text message or have something signed by them saying, hey, listen, I understand that I'm waiving this, and because I tell everybody, you at least want to have it just for your protection, just so the dishwasher's not working, or this isn't working.
Well, just get it and use it as a way to negotiate the price down.
Oh yeah.
If they want to do it, do it.
Yep, and I've done that so many times, and it works, because once a seller gets under contract, they don't want to go back on the market. They don't want to go through all that stuff again. They're like, well, sure, let me just negotiate the price again. Most people want to do that because sellers want to sell and buyers want to buy. So, but yeah, it's I think I've only done one deal where you were involved. You were the seller.
I was the seller?
Yeah. It was just a piece of land, just a lot in Bentley Park, I think it was. So it's about,
I had no clue.
It's a couple of years ago, I think, something like that. So
I owned a lot in there. I sold it to somebody. I didn't even know I had no clue. But I sold a lot over there to a real nice guy. Wasn't he a school teacher or something?
Yep. Yeah, he was a school teacher.
And you did I have a realtor?
Yeah, it was, unfortunately, it was Mr. Lamb.
Steve.
Steve,
yeah,
yeah.
That's right.
Yeah.
He was the luckiest real estate agent there ever lived.
Oh, yeah?
Yeah, he would just fall into a deal.
Yeah.
He'd talk you down, too. I
yeah?
probably sold it for less than I wanted to, but he just would keep going. I think COVID got him. He just never got over it.
Yeah.
How long's he been dead?
It's been probably
3 years?
But it was about 2 years ago when we sold that place, and it wasn't long after that he passed. It was probably maybe 18 months ago, something like that. But
Well, that lot would bring a lot now, wouldn't it, I guess?
Yeah.
I should have held on to it, but the dues were $400 a month.
Oh, wow.
Or $300. I don't know, but it was a lot.
Yeah.
Did they ever build a house on it?
They actually ended up selling it.
It was a nice lot.
Yeah, they ended up selling it. They bought another place. So they were living up in Tullahoma, someplace like that over there. But yeah, they moved back over here to Cleveland. So, but yeah, great family, great guy. So.
Yeah, I was at lunch one day and a friend of mine said, "Hey, these people are trying to get a hold of you. They want to buy the lot, but your realtor won't call them back." I guess it was Steve. And I said, "Well, just tell them I'll sell it." And he told me to sell it. Next thing I know, Steve's at the closing getting the checks. I liked him.
Yeah, that was the one and only deal I ever did with him.
Yeah.
But everybody I talked to that knew him, they said, like he's a really good guy.
He really was.
They said that of course, unfortunately, it was probably one of the last deals he ever did, and they said that he had been going downhill. And I went over there to talk to him a couple of times because he wouldn't do anything electronically, and so like I had to go over to him, and I met him a couple of times, and
I think I took his real commission check to him.
oh yeah,
I think, now that you mentioned it, I think I did.
yeah, super nice, but he was it was just one of those things where you could tell that he wasn't doing
The
good.
women liked him.
Oh yeah,
Oh yeah. Even when he was sick.
he was super nice. I mean, unfortunately, I didn't get a chance to know him very well.
So, how does people get a hold of you if they need to buy, sell, or trade?
So the easiest way is, just give me a holler, text message, phone call, 423-504-0814. That's the easiest way. Or just look me up on Facebook. I do a lot of things on social media.
You monitor your DMs or whatever?
Yeah, I try to. There's sometimes where I won't get a notification on those things. I don't know why. It acts all funky on me sometimes.
Mine does too. That's why I just don't do it.
Yeah, and it just gets all crazy. I tell everybody all the time, I really wish that we would just get rid of social media, like altogether, and 24-hour news networks. And I think that our world would be a much better place.
Are you from Cleveland originally?
No, sir. I'm actually from Northern Ohio. So
Northern Ohio.
yeah,
How in the world did you get to Cleveland, Tennessee?
Lee University.
You graduate from there?
Yep. And I actually graduated from there in 2004 with my my bachelor's, and then I went back and I did a really amazing program to get my master's degree, and I graduated with that in 2013.
That would have been about when a friend of mine graduated about that time. Bumgardner. What was his name?
Oh yeah.
What was his name, Gwen?
Slade?
Slade Bumgardner.
Did he run for political office or something? Am I
No.
thinking of? Maybe I'm thinking of somebody else.
He had a backline entertainment rigging company.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
He was into the. He didn't want to play music. He wanted to manage people that did it or something like that. Something odd. He was real good guy.
That's awesome.
I remember him, Slade Bumgardner. I don't know whatever happened to him. But so you're one of the people that came to Lee that stayed. There's a lot from Ohio that did that.
Yeah, my wife. So she's a Cleveland native.
What was her maiden name?
Randolph.
Randolph. Which Randolphs are they?
So she is she's related to like Sheridan Randolph and all of them.
Sheridan.
And
Kim's one of my best friends.
oh yeah,
Yeah. Do you know Kim?
I don't think so.
So she's related to Sheridan.
Yeah,
How would she be related to Sheridan?
something along the lines of her grandmother. I'm trying to think. Good Lord,
She would have been a Hughes. She would have been Hughes. Sheridan's and Kim's dad was Hugh.
Okay. I'm trying to think of how they're related because they have it's such a huge family. There's like all these different kids, and on both sides of my wife's family, her mom and her dad's. I think Sheridan would be her third cousin, maybe something like that. She knows all that stuff, but yeah. So it's that
Did
line.
she grow up down in Bates Pike or Benton Pike?
Benton Pike, yeah. So as a matter of fact, I was over at her granny's old house just yesterday. Her grandmother passed away just over 10 years ago. So she was 99 when she passed away.
On Benton Pike?
Yep.
Whereabouts on Benton Pike?
So let's see, if we're coming into town, so you past the on-ramp, to the left, it's a two-story house. It looks like a two-story house. Big columns in the front. Did have double front doors. They owned, I think it's like 5 or 7 acres on that lot right there.
A little rough neighborhood.
Yeah, and so that school, it's literally right behind her grandmother's house. But they're doing some renovations on it right now. My father-in-law's sister is doing the renovation. She's going to be moving into it. But yeah, so that's kind of where they grew up, and my father all grew up there.
So your father-in-law was a Randolph.
Mm-hmm. Yep. And
that explains why he doesn't spend any money.
oh yeah. Well, we walked into just yesterday. We were walking into. They have a little shed over their old garage, and his dad. He made all of his tools. He made everything.
Mm-hmm.
Like, and he did not throw away a single thing.
Did they used to sell concrete monuments there, or bird baths?
It was around that area.
Yeah.
Yeah. But yeah, his dad. His parents grew up in the Great Depression, and so they were in their 20s, 30s, something like that, in the Great Depression.
Were they Church of Christ out there?
It was either his dad was Church of Christ and his mom was Church of God, or vice versa. I always get that mixed
I think
up.
his dad was.
Yeah, I think his dad, because his dad was.
His dad was King Randolph. See if I'm not right.
What was his
Your
name?
father-in-law's dad was King Randolph.
Is it Joe?
But it was King.
I can't even remember. Velma was his mom. So Velma Randolph was his mom. His mom's name. I always forget his dad's name. But yeah, Velma was his mom. I never met the dad. The dad passed away in 96, 97, something like that. So it's before I came down here. But
maybe it was his dad was King Randolph.
could be.
I think that's what it was. Not, yeah.
But yeah, so they yeah.
We're related to the Randolphs somehow.
Oh yeah?
Yeah, there's a relation there through King Randolph and Mary Randolph, I think.
It's awesome. There's a big book that my wife has at the house. I need to get it out and look at that stuff. It's the history of their.
We're related to the Perkinsons too.
Oh yeah?
Yeah, but that's a different string. But where'd y'all meet at school?
Set up on a blind date. So a friend.
She was blind and you was.
Yep. And so yeah, we were just a friend of hers and a friend of mine were dating, and we just were set up. As a matter of fact, she stood me up on our very first date.
Is that
So,
right?
yeah, March 2nd.
So she wasn't blind.
Yeah, so she saw me. She's like, no way. But so March 2nd, 2002, we're supposed to be our first date, and she just said, nah, I just don't want to go. And then I was able to convince her 10 days later. So March 12th, we went out for the first time. And then second date was 2 days later. Sonic on Stewart Road was starting to serve breakfast or something like that. And they had some sort of like crazy deal. And I said, hey, I'm going to leave for Ohio that day. Let's go have some breakfast. And so we had some breakfast at Sonic, and we listened to Bon Jovi, and we bonded over that. And so, the rest
So it
is
was Bon
history.
Jovi's fault.
It was Bon Jovi's fault.
What song was it?
It was the Slippery When Wet album. We listened to several songs on that one.
Living on a Prayer?
Yeah, so I think that's on that album. Yeah, and yeah, it was. We started talking about music, and she loves music, and of course, me being a musician, we just hit it off.
There was a Charles Randolph too.
I think I remember her mentioning something about Charles. So,
Yeah.
but yeah, so we've been together for over 20 years now, and she's put up with me this long.
Well, listen, I appreciate you coming. Give this guy a call. Give him some business.
Well, I appreciate you.